When white people in the United States balk at the idea of paying reparations to black Americans who descended from slaves, they disagree with the Bible. Reparations are a form of compensation or restitution made to those who have suffered injustice, particularly those in cases of racial inequality, discrimination, and slavery. The idea of paying reparations to black Americans is not a new one. It has been a topic of discussion for decades, if not centuries. However, it has gained renewed attention and support in recent years, following the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the growing recognition of systemic racism in American society. As a Christian, I believe that reparations are not only a matter of justice and equity, but also a reflection of God's character and values. In the Bible, we see numerous examples of God's concern for the oppressed, the marginalized, and the downtrodden. From the Israelites' liberation from slavery in Egypt to the ministry of Jesus among the poor and the outcast, we see a consistent theme of God's love for those who are on the margins of society. One of the key biblical principles that underlie the idea of reparations is the concept of restitution. In the book of Leviticus, we see God commanding the Israelites to make restitution to those whom they have wronged. Leviticus 6, 1 through 5 says, "If anyone sins and commits a breach of faith against the Lord by deceiving his neighbor in a matter of deposit or security or through robbery, or if he has oppressed his neighbor or has found something lost and lied about it, swearing falsely in any of all the things that people do and sin thereby, if he has sinned and has realized his guilt and will restore what he took by robbery when he got it by oppression or deposit that was committed to him, or the lost thing that he found, or anything about which he has sworn falsely, he shall restore in full and shall add a fifth to it, and give it to him to whom it belongs on the day that he realizes his guilt." This passage emphasizes the importance of making restitution to those who have been wronged, and not just restoring what was taken, but adding to it as a form of compensation. This principle of restitution can be applied to the issue of reparations to black Americans who have suffered centuries of enslavement, discrimination, and systemic oppression. Another biblical principle that supports the idea of reparations is the concept of Jubilee. In Leviticus 25, God commands the Israelites to observe a Jubilee every 50th year, during which all debts are forgiven, all slaves to be set free, and all property to be returned to its original owners. This was a radical idea of economic justice designed to prevent the accumulation of wealth and power in the hands of a few, and to ensure that all members of society had equal access to resources and opportunities. The idea of Jubilee can be seen as a model for reparations in that it seeks to address the root causes of inequality and oppression rather than just treating the symptoms. By forgiving debts, freeing slaves, and returning property, Jubilee seeks to create a more just and equitable society, one in which everyone has the opportunity to flourish. As a Christian, I believe paying reparations to black Americans is only a matter of justice and equity, but also it is a reflection of God's values and character. Through the biblical principles of restitution and Jubilee, we see a model for how we can address the historical and systemic injustices that have plagued our society for far too long. While the issue of reparations is complex and contentious, I believe that as Christians, we have a responsibility to seek justice.
Hello, good people, and I hope that you are okay from whichever place that you are watching this video from. So lately, we've seen unexpected taking place. The white people are finally admitting the truth about black Americans. Black Americans have always been ignored and dismissed from generations to generations. Now the white people are finally speaking what these black people are going through in other cities. So remember that when the truth finally comes out, it normally shifts the culture and conversations, and we tend to see them in a different way. So today we are going to break down this truths which are being spoken by the white people and how they are going to affect the black Americans going forward. Remember that this is Polito Realities, a channel where we handle hidden truths, we handle real discussions, honest stories, and we bring forward what people do not expect to hear. If you are new here, remember to like, to subscribe, and to share for commentary videos like this.
When white people see my posts about racism in America, frequently they say, "I didn't know." When black people see these comments, they say, "We already know. There is no way you didn't know. Don't pretend you didn't." This disconnect is really hard to explain, and I've been trying to understand it myself. I'm going to be digging into this really deep because I think it's so important. It's not that we're just oblivious white people. It's that we've been groomed to be oblivious white people. People point out that it's not like this stuff is locked in some vault somewhere. It's available. You can see it. And that's true. But we were trained not to ask questions. We were trained not to look for it. And I see it in my family. I see it in my circle of friends, even some of my friends that are pretty progressive. We have this ingrained training to not ask too many questions. We were taught to trust authority figures, teachers, ministers, police officers, politicians, the anchor guy on the evening news. We believed them because we were groomed from childhood to believe that they were trustworthy. We were not taught that the system itself, the system they were part of, was designed to protect itself first. And frankly, it felt good just to trust them. It's like you had this permanent mommy and daddy figure. It made life feel safe. The gaps in white knowledge were filled in with lies. We were told that poor people were lazy, that's why they're poor. That crime existed in black neighborhoods because they were black neighborhoods. That broken families cause poverty. These ideas were not questioned. They were treated as common sense. And we were started with our grooming as infants, as little tiny babies, as little bitty kids that are impressionable and just forming our ideas about the world. So that was our social foundation. We were told that black people can't keep their marriages together. I was even told that the reason they couldn't keep their marriages together was because of how they were treated during slavery. So out of one side of their mouth, they'd say, "Wasn't that horrible that families were split up during slavery?" But now that has just become part of who they are. And so it's their fault. I don't know, it didn't make sense to me either. We also were not told that welfare benefits were not available if there was a man in the house. A black woman working 2 jobs who still needed support to raise her children could not have a husband or partner living in the house with her. And of course we were taught that that was their fault because they couldn't keep their marriages together. As we were growing up and we started to repeat these beliefs, we were seen as respectful and well-adjusted. I don't know, are you getting pissed off? I'm getting pissed off just going through this again. We were guided by the TV news and movies and TV shows to care when white people suffered and to disconnect from the pain of other people. We were taught to feel patriotic about our country without questioning whether they were being truthful with us about why we should feel such patriotism. When we asked those white authority figures that we were taught to trust, we were lied to. Now, when black people give us honest answers, we don't fully trust them. It's not about ignorance, it's about conditioning. My education is in behavior analysis, and that's how that works. You just expose someone to a social system that supports a certain line of thinking, and you fall for it, especially if you are started out as a young kid being taught all that stuff, and that's what happens to all of us. We were taught that silence is polite and that truth about society is rude or inappropriate. And as a girl that went to a fundamentalist Christian church, that was even more so. You don't ask questions that are going to make people uncomfortable. But that comfort, you see, it kept us obedient. It kept us from asking too many questions. It kept us from wanting to do anything about it because we didn't fully understand that there was something that needed to be done. We were used to preserve a system that depended on our own silence. It kept us from befriending Black people. It kept us from knowing what the hell we thought we knew about those people. So when white people say, I didn't know about any of this, understand what that really means. We were trained not to look. We were trained to believe the stories that we were told by the authority figures. We were shaped by a system that used your trust against you. We were trained to look away. And now we have a choice. White people, we need to get angry about being kept in the dark all these years so that together with our Black neighbors and neighbors of all races, we can break down this oppressive system that has brought us here to the point of fascism. Check the caption for some documentaries to help you get started learning. We need to really get curious.
White man from the South says they saw Black people as pets.
As far as the colored people were concerned, I feel that they were a good bit happier than they are now. They had less in the way of material things. But I can remember back in the 20s when I was a small boy, they were always singing at their work. They had a great sense of humor. And now today, they just don't seem to care much about that as they used to. And I think they've lost their sense of somewhat, which I deplore.
Mr. Hasty, what did you think we were before you began to think of us as human beings?
Well, in a way, we thought of you almost as a very superior pet. Something, or rather someone, we had to take care of. Because we had to do so much of their thinking for them. We had to do almost everything for them that, except living their own lives. Anything outside, we had to do for them.
White people need to talk more about race with their family and community. I know that this sounds counterintuitive because your feed is probably filled with white people talking about race when it is obviously an issue that affects people of color, but the problem is that it's perpetuated in white families in ways that they do not realize. I am trying to call out the racism that is either explicit or implicit among white circles. People act racist a lot of the time behind closed doors, which is something that I, as a white person, see a lot. It doesn't matter if I'm in Chicago, if I'm in rural California, if I'm in rural places, generally speaking, white people are racist in the US. And sometimes in ways that they don't even realize. So my goal with my content is to see this, to report on it, to encourage white people to evaluate critically what that means. Although it might seem like I'm trying to take away voices of people of color, I'm not trying to speak on the effects of racism or anything like that. I'm trying to talk about how it's systemic and encourage other white people to evaluate their biases, because I understand this because of the environment I was raised in, which is very conservative.
No matter your age, when you're Black in America, you don't get to be fully American. That freedom we're so fond of talking about as a nation comes with an asterisk when you're Black. We're viewed with suspicion. We're never given the benefit of the doubt. Our actions are never presumed innocent. And with that comes a lot of stress. There are moments that sneak up on you, say sitting in a Starbucks while Black, or birding in Central Park while Black, or shopping for underwear while Black, or Airbnb-ing while Black. Then there are those moments when action is needed, but if you've read my writing over the years, you know I never leave home without my driver's license, insurance card, and business card with my husband's cell phone number on it, because you just never know. I'm one vigilante, avowed racist or homophobe away from calamity. And if I got into an accident on a country road, I'd think long and hard about whether to go to the nearby house for help. Could I be putting myself in more danger by doing so? I can't afford not to think this way. That's what being Black in America means. Constantly weighing the pros and cons of countless situations and interactions and hoping you get from point A to point B with as much of your dignity intact, if not your life.
The wealth of this country, the territorial reach of this country, the military strength of this country got its roots in American slavery, the chattel slavery of Black people. And then on that foundation, the ideology of white supremacy, of Black inferiority, was propagated. It was made a bedrock of one of the glues of this society, and it has been woven into this society ever since. The forms of oppression have changed. It took a civil war to end slavery, but then what happened? After not even 10 years of Reconstruction, where Black people were brought into some rights within this country, that was betrayed. The troops were pulled out, and Black people were re-enslaved in new conditions, slavery by another name, sharecropping for generations, lynch mob terror and violence. Black people stood up and they waged struggle in the civil rights movement. They gave their lives, they stood up. This upended Jim Crow, and then that was dismantled, and what did this system come back with? A new Jim Crow of mass incarceration that has ground up millions of Black lives.
Family, please listen to something that Donald Trump said in regards to our National History, African American Museum and History and Culture in D.C. You know that he is removing many of the artifacts out of there, return them to their owners, because he says museums in our nation's capital should be places where individuals go to learn, not to be subjected to ideological indoctrination or divisive narratives that distort our shared history. First of all, that is such ignorance. So you're saying that you want to remove what really happened in American history because it's divisive? But yet you all had a problem when we were telling you all you need to remove the Confederate flags, remove these Confederate statues because they were divisive. You know, when I first saw this, that what the president and many of his racist cohorts are trying to do, they're trying to erase us. We know that. And at first I got angry and then I got nervous, but then I got quiet. And I said, you know what? God is not going to allow this. Black people will never be erased, and more so our ancestors won't. See, white people, I'm explaining something to you all, especially you racist white folk. God has given you all ample enough time to turn away and repent from your evil, wicked ways, and also to repent on behalf of your ancestors. But you still refuse to do it, and you still sit in your white evangelical nationalist churches and preach this God of love. But yet you want to erase history. If your history is so bad and you are so good now, why can't you teach that, hey, this is what we used to be. This is how we used to treat Blacks. This is how we used to treat Native Americans. This is how we used to treat Jews. But now we have learned. You know why you can't do that? Because you have not learned. You haven't. I'm telling you, white folk, your day of reckoning is coming. But it's not coming from where you think. See, our ancestors have been quiet in their graves. They have been quiet. And see, many of you all, you don't believe in all of that, but I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you what I know. You keep removing our artifacts. Removing our artifacts from this museum is like troubling a cemetery. And I'm telling you now, God is not pleased and the ancestors are not pleased. See, we battle a spiritual war, right? So you can sit up here all day long and read your Bibles and quote your little verses while you sit in your white churches, drive your little Harley Davidson gang to your white churches while you sit in the pews drinking your coffee and looking so smug and arrogant. But when judgment starts falling on your home and on your church and on your people, don't look at us. Because God said, I've given these people enough time and they still have not repented for the sins of their forefathers. And for that, judgment must come. So black folk, this is a little troubling that they're going to remove stuff. But hey, we're not attached to things, right? It doesn't matter. Because you can take away artifacts, you can do whatever you want, but you can never take away the sincerity, the passion, the vigor, the brilliance of our people. And you damn sure not going to stop our next generation. Racist white folk, watch yourself. You are sinners in the hands of an angry God, and he is not pleased with you.
Welcome back again. We've watched the clips and we've seen what people are saying and what is happening. So finally, the white people have come out to admit that racism and discrimination is still taking place. And remember that our only tool here is the internet. The internet keeps recording things, and remember, the internet does not forget. So white Americans cannot pretend anymore because everything now is documented. It's no longer about the black people complaining, but it is reality that has finally come out. The white people are admitting that there is systematic racism and still it's existing. So now many people admit that there is racism in the black Americans. So like the last video that I shared, we've seen that there is discrimination and racism, especially in the healthcare system. You go to a healthcare system, you are ignored and people don't take you seriously. Apart from the healthcare system, there is also a lot of racism in housing, education, policing, and hiring black Americans. The myth of equal opportunity now is finally being changed. Some white Americans say we didn't see it, but now we are seeing what is happening to our fellow black Americans. And now, again, the white Americans are admitting that black Americans are treated differently. Every day, discrimination is finally acknowledged. People being followed in stores, people being judged at work and profiled by the police. They are accepting that black Americans were not wrong when they were complaining about what is happening to them. So again, the white Americans are saying that blacks now have excelled. From many years ago, we've been looked down as blacks, but now the truth has finally come out that the black people are not dumb, but they have excelled in so many places. Now the whites are acknowledging that the black Americans, or blacks in general, they have been creative, they have leadership skills, and from leadership skills, they also acknowledge that the blacks are also excelling in the world of entertainment and sports. White Americans are now admitting that they benefit from black culture, and while the blacks are struggling, they actually are benefiting from their black culture. And also, the white people are acknowledging that black Americans hold higher standards. Black people must work twice to be seen as equal. White Americans now admit that they never faced those pressures. The double standard is real, and they actually are seeing that now. This admission exposes the unfair expectations placed on black people. And also, the white people are actually admitting that there is generational trauma, and this trauma is real. The trauma is passing from generation to generation. Now, people are understanding trauma is not affecting not only a single person, but it keeps on passing from the parents to the children and the grandchildren. Slavery, mass incarceration, it leaves wounds on those people. So white Americans are admitting this changes the whole narrative. Then the whites are also saying that they are taking everything, or whatever they are doing to the blacks, they are actually benefiting themselves. It's not about wealth. it's the access, the safety, and assumptions that favor them. They admit the game was never fair for the Black Americans. So understanding privilege is the first step towards change. And the whites are also admitting that they played a role in the problem. So you see that there is the racism and discrimination that is happening to Black Americans, and they are actually judged in a different way. So the whites are finally saying they are the cause of those problems. When those things are happening to Black Americans, they tend to be silent, and when silence prolongs, actually the problem becomes big. And finally, the whites are admitting that whatever that is happening to Black Americans is they are the problem themselves, and they are the cause of those problems that are happening to the fellow Black Americans. This honesty is very uncomfortable, but again, it is necessary. And also, the Black Americans have been right all the way. The whites are saying that these people did not only complain, but they have been right all the way. So from police brutality to discrimination, Black voices have been consistent. Now the same stories are being validated by non-blacks. We see that white people are now coming out and saying that these people are unfairly treated. Not the blacks saying, but their own people. So this moment changes how the society hears Black experiences. So now the whites have admitted that they are the cause of the problem, and we are happy that they have come out and realized how they've been treating the Black Americans, and now they want change for the Black Americans. And when they admit, it means that recognition now, it is the first step towards accountability. And we see that when a person has admitted something like the whites, now conversations about justice are taken seriously. The truth being admitted today could change the policies of tomorrow. So remember that whether these admissions come from guilt, honesty, or pure observations, one thing is clear: the truth always comes out, and once it's out, we can't take it back. Remember that you've been watching Polito Realities, a channel of real discussions, honest truth, and real stories. Remember to like, to subscribe, and to share this video. Until next time, stay informed and be blessed.